What if I told you that you're probably a criminal? No, I'm not talking about that time you forgot to return your friend's hoodie for a year. I'm talking about breaking actual real-life laws. Laws that are so bizarre, so specific, and so unbelievably strange that you've likely committed half a dozen of them without having a clue. For years, we've all heard the rumors and seen the internet lists. It's illegal to wear a fake mustache in church. You can't let your donkey sleep in a bathtub. It's forbidden to tie a giraffe to a telephone pole. We've all had a good laugh at them. But here's the real question. How many of them are actually real? And could any of these silly rules actually get you in trouble? Today we're putting 15 of America's most infamous weird laws to the test. We are going to separate the facts from the fiction, the myths from the misdemeanors. By the end of this, you'll not only find out if you're an accidental criminal, but you'll also hear the wild stories behind these legal legends. Keep a running tally because I want to know your score in the comments. Let's do this. From wearing a fake mustache in church to sharing your Netflix password, you've almost certainly broken some ridiculous sounding laws. Today we're putting you to the test in a fast-paced, no-mercy, laugh-out-loud rundown to see just how many of these 15 laws make you an accidental criminal. Kicking things off is a classic you've definitely seen online. In Alabama, it's illegal to wear a fake mustache in church if it causes laughter. Picture this. Someone sitting in the back row of a church wearing a fake mustache, trying to make their friends laugh during the sermon, only to be taken away in handcuffs. It feels like a scene from a comedy movie, as if the rule was made just to stop silly jokes during church. But could you really become an outlaw for pulling a Groucho Marx-inspired prank on your pastor? Well, we went digging through Alabama's state and city laws, hunting for this legendary rule. And the verdict is, this one is pure legal folklore. There is no real enforceable law in Alabama that specifically bans fake mustaches in a place of worship. While plenty of states, including nearby Mississippi, they do have old laws against deliberately disrupting a religious service. The idea of a law that singles out mustaches is a complete myth. It likely grew out of broad old-timey public decency laws that got exaggerated over the decades into the funnier version we know today. So for this one, your criminal record is clean. Verdict, not guilty. Now be honest, what's the most inappropriate time you've ever burst out laughing? Let me know down in the comments. Next, we head to the sun-baked deserts of Arizona for a law that sounds like it was written after a very, very strange day. The law says it's illegal for a donkey to sleep in a bathtub. This is so oddly specific. It just has to be real, right? I mean, why on earth would anyone invent a law about where a donkey can or cannot nap? Unlike the mustache myth, this one has a real and frankly incredible origin story. But it's not a statewide law. The rule originated in the town of Kingman, Arizona, and dates back to 1924. The story goes that a local rancher had a donkey that loved sleeping in an old bathtub on his property. One day, a nearby dam broke, unleashing a massive flood. The floodwaters swept up the tub with the donkey still inside and washed it miles down the valley. The donkey was fine, but the town had to spend a whole lot of time and money to rescue the animal from its porcelain prison. Soon after, to prevent ever having to repeat the great donkey in a tub rescue mission, Kingman passed the ordinance. So are you an accidental criminal? Only if you live in Kingman, own a donkey, have a spare bathtub lying around, and your donkey decides it's the coziest bed in town. Verdict, guilty, but only in Kingman. Let's hop over to California for a law that sounds like it was ripped straight from a Mark Twain novel. And that's because it basically was. The law states that it's illegal to eat a frog that has died during a frog jumping contest. This feels like peak California weirdness, but is it a real enforceable law? You bet it is. This law is 100% real and is right there in the California Fish and Game Code. Section 6883. It says that any frog that dies during a contest must be destroyed as soon as possible and may not be eaten or otherwise used for any purpose. This law is directly connected to the famous Calaveras County Fair and Jumping Frog Jubilee, an event inspired by Mark Twain's 1865 story, The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County. The problem was that many frogs used in today's contests are non-native species, like the American bullfrog. California is super strict about releasing invasive species into the wild. Officials worried that people might bring in these frogs, pretending it was for a contest, but really just use it as a loophole to get frog legs for dinner. The law makes sure the contest stays about jumping, not eating. So if your prize-winning jumper croaks mid-competition, you can't legally turn your tragedy into a meal. Verdict: guilty. Quick question for the comments. What's the strangest food rule or tradition you've ever heard of? At number 4, we have a law that's been confusing people for years. In Connecticut, for a pickle to legally be a pickle, it has to bounce. If you drop it and it just splatters, it's not a pickle, it's a fraud. This sounds like a job for a team of pickle inspectors, armed with rulers and clipboards, testing the aerodynamic qualities of gherkins. This story is one of the most stubborn, weird law legends. And just like the Arizona donkey law, it started with a real event. But the idea that it's a written law today is a myth. The story comes from a 1948 case where 2 pickle packers were arrested for selling pickles that were unfit for human consumption. They were literally selling rotten pickles. During the case, Connecticut's Food and Drug Commissioner at the time, Frederick H. Holbrook, told a reporter that one easy way to test a pickle's freshness was to drop it from 1 foot. If it bounced, it was good. If it splattered, it was rotten. This bounce test was just a helpful tip from an official, not a law passed by the government. The story was so funny, it took on a life of its own, turning into the myth that all pickles in Connecticut must be acrobats. The Connecticut State Library gets asked about this so often that they have an official statement debunking it. So if you're selling non-bouncing pickles, you're not a criminal. You might just be selling bad pickles. Verdict: not guilty. I'm genuinely curious, has anyone ever actually tried to bounce a pickle? Let me know if it worked. Welcome to Florida, the state known for sunshine, beaches, and some truly bizarre legal history. This one's a classic. It is illegal to sing in public while wearing a swimsuit. So, if you're at Miami Beach and get the urge to belt out a tune, you'd better cover up first or risk breaking the law. Is this for real? Could your beach karaoke session make you a criminal? The answer is not anymore, but it used to be. This story comes from real local ordinances in places like Sarasota that are no longer in effect. The law's origin is a relic from a much more strict and moralistic time, probably around the 1940s. As bathing suits got smaller, local officials wanted to crack down on what they considered indecent behavior. Combining the immorality of a skimpy swimsuit with the public disturbance of singing was just too much for them. While you have zero chance of getting arrested for singing Sweet Caroline in your swim trunks today, the fact this law ever existed makes it a fascinating legal fossil. Verdict: not guilty, but you would have been in the old days. Audience challenge: what's your go-to shower song? The one you'd risk it all to sing on a beach? Heading to the Midwest, we find a law in Indiana that goes against every man versus wild fantasy you've ever had. It is illegal to catch a fish with your bare hands. This practice, known as noodling, is a celebrated tradition in some parts of the country. But in Indiana, it could get you in trouble. Is this a real law or just a story to keep people from getting their hands dirty? This one is 100% real. The Indiana code is very clear. You cannot take fish from state waters using only your hands. The law also bans using firearms or dynamite, which seems fair. But the ban on barehanded fishing, that one really stands out. So why would the state ban such a primal way of fishing? It's all about conservation. Noodling is most effective when you find a catfish guarding its nest of eggs. A protective catfish won't leave its nest, making it an easy target for a noodler to just grab it. By banning the practice, Indiana protects catfish when they are most vulnerable, making sure there are plenty of fish for the future. So while it sounds silly, it has a serious environmental purpose. Verdict: guilty. Let's get a vote in the comments. Who here thinks they could actually catch a fish with their bare hands? Type fishy if you'd give it a shot.
I hope you are enjoying the video so far. If you are loving what you are watching, do not forget to show some support by hitting that like button. It really helps us out. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Connection Station for more awesome content just like this. We are all about creating connections, and we do not want you to miss any of the fun. We appreciate all the support, and we are so glad to have you as part of our journey. Now, let us jump right back into the video.
Our next law comes from the great city of Chicago, and it's a piece of advice so obvious. You wouldn't think it needed to be a law. In Chicago, it is illegal to eat in a restaurant that is currently on fire. You have to wonder what happened to make the city council say, you know what, we need to write this down. So is this a real law? Not quite. This is a hilarious exaggeration of other, very real laws. There is no specific city ordinance that says, don't finish your food if the building is on fire. However, Chicago's municipal code, like any city's, requires people to evacuate during an emergency and makes it illegal to obstruct firefighters. The myth likely started as a joke about what would happen if someone refused to leave. It's the perfect example of common sense being turned into a funny, fake law. No one is getting a ticket for illegal dining in a fire. They're getting arrested for refusing to evacuate and getting in the way of emergency crews. Still, if you smell smoke in a restaurant, maybe get that deep dish pizza to go. From a burning restaurant, we step into the waters of Ohio for a law that sounds like it was written by a very confused activist group. The popular claim that it's illegal to get a fish drunk in Ohio. It brings to mind a scene where someone is pouring a beer into their aquarium just as the cops bust in. This one is a classic, weird law that's been swimming around the internet for years. But when you actually look at the Ohio Revised Code, the reality is a bit murky. There is no law that specifically says giving alcohol to a fish is against the rules. The myth probably comes from misreading broader laws, like ones against polluting streams or animal cruelty. For example, dumping a bunch of alcohol into a public river? Yes, that would definitely count as pollution. And that's 100% illegal. There is no proof that a law was made to stop people from giving alcohol to fish. It's one of those funny, memorable, and just believable enough ideas that got repeated over and over until it turned into fact. So while giving your goldfish a cocktail is absolutely a terrible idea, it wouldn't actually make you a criminal under any specific drunk fish law. Verdict: not guilty. Let's head to America's Dairyland for a law that seems to perfectly capture the state's soul. In Wisconsin, it's supposedly illegal for a restaurant to serve apple pie without a slice of cheese. This is often presented as a point of state pride, a legal demand to uphold the sacred pairing of sweet apple pie with savory cheddar. Is it true? Are Wisconsin restaurants legally forced to serve cheese with their pie? As much as cheese lovers wish it were true, this is a myth, but it's a myth with a delicious kernel of truth. Back in the 1930s, during the Great Depression, Wisconsin was trying everything to support its struggling dairy industry. From 1935 to 1937, a law was on the books that made restaurants serve a small amount of both butter and cheese with every meal over a certain price. The law never said the cheese had to be served on the apple pie, just that it had to come with the meal. That law was repealed in 1937, but the legend lived on, morphing into the charming myth we know today. Verdict: not guilty. This is a big one. Apple pie. With cheese or without? Cast your vote in the comments. I need to know. Now for a shockingly modern law, and one that a lot of us are probably guilty of breaking. In 2011, Tennessee passed a law that made it illegal to share your password for services like Netflix or Hulu. Wait, what? Sharing your Netflix login with your parents or your friend from college is a crime. It sounds way too broad to be real, but it is. Tennessee updated its old anti-theft laws, originally about cable TV piracy, to specifically include sharing streaming service logins. The law was pushed by the entertainment industry to go after hackers who steal and sell massive lists of passwords. But here's the problem. The way it's written, it also technically covers casual password sharing between friends and family if you don't live in the same house. A violation is a misdemeanor that could lead to fines up to $2,500 and even jail time. Officials say they don't intend to prosecute a college kid for sharing an account with their roommate. But the law makes it possible. Verdict: guilty. Let's head down to Georgia for a law that has to be one of the most famously bizarre pieces of legal folklore out there. The supposed law, it makes it illegal to tie a giraffe to a telephone pole or a street lamp. This immediately makes you wonder, was there a massive giraffe parking crisis in Atlanta at some point that we all missed? As you've probably guessed, this one is a complete and utter myth. There is no Georgia state law or Atlanta city ordinance that has ever been written about how to properly secure a giraffe to public property. This is a prime example of a weird law urban legend. A statement so absurd, so visual, that it's just plain fun to repeat. Its origins are impossible to find, probably starting as a joke that someone added to an online list, where it has been copied and pasted ever since. It's a great reminder to always be skeptical. Just because a fact is repeated everywhere online doesn't make it true. So if you happen to be walking your pet giraffe through Atlanta, you can relax. You're not an accidental criminal, although you'll probably have some other questions to answer. Verdict: not guilty. This next law from Oklahoma feels like it was written specifically to target the nosy neighbor in every town. In Oklahoma, it's a misdemeanor to secretly loiter around a building, to overhear conversations, and then repeat them to vex, annoy, or injure others. This is not a myth. This is a real law right there in the Oklahoma statutes. The law against eavesdropping is surprisingly old school in its language, painting a picture of some shadowy figure hiding in the bushes just to get the latest gossip. While modern wiretapping laws are way more complicated, This rule targets the simple act of physically lurking and listening just so you can spread harmful rumors. It's a fascinating law because it doesn't just criminalize listening, it criminalizes listening with a mean streak. You have to intend to repeat what you hear to cause trouble. So, accidentally overhearing drama at a coffee shop is fine. But hiding outside your rival's window to catch them seeing something embarrassing, you can post online. That could technically make you a criminal in Oklahoma. It's literally a law against weaponized gossip. Verdict: guilty. Let's take a trip to Vermont for a law that is, without a doubt, one of the most physically impossible to break. The repeated claim is that it is illegal to whistle underwater in Vermont. This immediately raises a few questions, mainly, who can whistle underwater and why would Vermont care enough to ban it? This one is, perhaps unsurprisingly, a total fabrication. There is no law in the Vermont statutes that says anything about underwater whistling. It's pure fiction, created just for the absurdity of it. It's the kind of law that makes you chuckle and shake your head, which is why it has lived on for so long on the internet. It falls into the same category as the myth that it's illegal to mispronounce Arkansas in Arkansas. They are jokes dressed up as laws. The fact that whistling underwater is a genuine physical challenge for almost every human on Earth just makes it funnier. So if you're one of the few people who has mastered the art of the submerged serenade, feel free to practice your talent in the lakes of Vermont. Verdict: not guilty. Our second to last law takes us to New England, a region that runs on Dunkin. And in South Berwick, Maine, there was a rule that took this dedication to a new level. It was illegal to park in front of the Dunkin Doughnuts. This sounds like a cruel joke. The one place you need to park is the one place you legally can't. This one is fascinating because it was absolutely real. But it's now history. The town of South Berwick had a local traffic ordinance that specifically banned parking in the spot directly in front of the Dunkin Doughnuts. The reason wasn't to torture coffee-deprived citizens, but for public safety. The spot was at a busy and awkward intersection, and cars pulling in and out of that one space were causing a traffic hazard. To solve the problem, the town simply outlawed parking in that single spot. The ordinance became a local legend, but the story has an ending. After years of being a local joke, the town officially repealed the rule in 2012. So for a while you could have gotten a ticket for grabbing that prime spot, but not anymore. Verdict: not guilty anymore. A law from North Carolina that paints a truly majestic, if wildly impractical picture. It is said to be illegal to use an elephant to plough a cotton field. This sounds like a law that P.T. Barnum himself might have inspired. After a strange career change into farming, was there a time when North Carolina farmers were renting circus animals for the harvest? As fun as that is to imagine, this law is just another myth. There is zero evidence that North Carolina has, or ever had, a law about using elephants as farm equipment. This legend is probably a funny exaggeration of real laws that regulated livestock or exotic animals. Someone likely saw a rule about not using unfit animals for labor and let their imagination run wild, landing on the most unfit animal they could think of for ploughing a cotton field: an elephant. It shows how a small, funny idea can grow into a widely believed fact. So while it's definitely not a good idea, it would not be illegal to employ an elephant on your farm. Verdict: not guilty. To wrap it up, what animal, real or mythical, do you think would make the best farmhand? I'm expecting some creative answers here. Let's see who brings the weirdest one to the table.
Here is your chance to win exciting gifts and hampers. Answer this question in the comments.
In which US state is it illegal to do hand noodling, catching fish with your bare hands? A. Texas, B. Oklahoma, C. Indiana, D. Ohio. Giving away an exclusive Labubu doll. Here's how to win it. Answer the question in the comments below. We're picking one fabulous winner straight from the comments. So don't hold back. The more you comment, the better your chances.